Okay, let's dive straight in. Have you ever stopped to think, really think, about how much your coffee beans actually weigh after they go through the roasting process?
It's a great question because the answer, well, it reveals this really fascinating transformation.
Exactly. And that's what we're getting into today, how roasting changes the weight of coffee beans.
hmm Across the different levels, light, medium, and dark roasts.
And what this weight change really tells us about, well, about the flavor and the
Or,
whole coffee experience.
right, we're looking at how roasting affects coffee bean weight using some discussions and data on the topic as our guide.
And this isn't just about numbers, is it? It's really about understanding a key part of what makes your coffee taste the way it does.
Absolutely. It connects physics to flavor, basically.
Okay, so to make this clear for everyone listening, let's set a benchmark. Imagine we start with, say, 1 kilogram of green coffee beans, raw, unroasted.
Good starting point. 1 kilo. That's our baseline.
So what happens first? Let's talk light roast. Heat goes on. What's the weight change look like?
Okay, light roast. So these beans, they're roasted for a shorter time, less intense heat generally.
Right.
So they lose around 11 to maybe 13% of their weight.
Okay, 11 to 13%. So from that original kilo, we're down to about 870 to 890 grams, somewhere in there.
Exactly, you're in that range. They don't lose a huge amount compared to darker roasts.
And that lack of major weight loss, what does that tell us about the bean itself?
Well, it means it's holding on to more of its original stuff, its structure, and importantly, quite a bit of its moisture.
Ah,
And what's really fascinating is that because it keeps more moisture and isn't heated as intensely, more of those volatile aromatic compounds survive.
the ones that smell amazing.
Precisely. The ones that give you those bright acidic notes, sometimes fruity or floral flavors, the things that really speak to where the coffee came from its origin.
Right, that makes sense. That's why people say light roast showcase the terroir, the bean's inherent character. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what about medium roasts then? Often called the crowd pleaser, sort of the balanced option. How much weight are we losing there?
Okay, moving to medium. Here, the weight loss creeps up a bit. You're looking at roughly 13 to 15% loss.
13 to 15. So our kilo is now maybe 850 to 870 grams.
Yep, that's the zone. Definitely shedding a bit more water weight now.
And I guess that extra loss means more changes are happening inside the bean. It's not just water evaporating, is it?
Not just water, no. That increased weight loss, that extra drying, it allows for more intense chemical reactions. Specifically, the Maillard reaction really gets going.
Yeelard. That's like the browning effect in cooking, right?
Yeah.
Steak searing, bread crust.
Exactly that. It's the sugars and amino acids reacting under heat. In coffee, this creates melanoidins and other compounds.
And that's where those classic coffee flavors come from.
A lot of them, yeah. You get more caramelization, those deeper notes, think chocolate, nuts, maybe some toasted bread character. It smooths out the acidity a bit, balances it with sweetness. It's often seen as that kind of sweet spot.
The sweet spot, yeah. It sounds like the roast itself is starting to add its own signature to the bean's original taste. Less origin, more roast.
Well, it's more of a balance, I'd say. You still get origin character, but the roast development is much more pronounced than in a light roast. It's developing complexity.
Interesting. Okay, let's push it further. Dark roasts, the bold ones, often oily, deep color. What's the weight situation there?
Right, dark roasts. This is where you see the most significant weight loss. We're talking typically 15 up to maybe 18%, sometimes even a touch more in very dark roasts.
Wow, 15 to 18%. So that starting kilogram could end up being as light as 820 grams, maybe up to 850.
That's the range. It's a noticeable difference from the green bean.
That's a fair chunk of mass gone. What's happening chemically and physically during that longer, hotter roast to cause that?
Well, you're getting maximum moisture evaporation for starters, just driving off as much water as possible. But also, the heat is causing significant breakdown of the bean's internal structure.
Breaking down. How so?
Sugars are heavily caramelized, some even carbonized slightly. Cellulose structures start to break down. This is also when oils within the bean migrate to the surface.
Ah, that explains the oily sheen you often see on dark roasts.
Exactly. And those intense reactions, the breakdown and caramelization, they create very different flavor compounds. Think puricines, phenols,
Yeah.
things that give you smoky, perhaps spicy, and definitely more bitter notes.
So the flavor profile really shifts then, and we're moving away from that bright acidity and origin notes.
Definitely. Towards bold, intense, roasty flavors. The acidity drops significantly. The origin character of the bean is often, well, masked or heavily overlaid by the flavors of the roast itself.
You might get hints of dark chocolate or spice, perhaps.
You might, yeah. But the dominant impression is usually that strong, full-bodied, roast-forward character. It's very much about the roast.
Okay, so connecting it all back, the clear pattern is the darker the roast, the more weight is lost.
Precisely.
And the main reason for that weight loss is just water boiling off.
That's the primary driver, yes. Moisture evaporation. The more intense the heat, the longer the duration, the more water turns to steam and leaves the bean. Simple physics, really.
But with profound effects on flavor.
Absolutely. And it affects the yield, too, obviously. You put in a kilo of green beans, you get out less weight the darker you roast.
And you mentioned it has practical implications for brewing, too,
Yeah.
because the beans are lighter.
Yeah, density changes. Roasted beans are less dense than green beans, and dark roasted beans are generally less dense than light roasted beans. Meaning, if you measure your coffee by volume, like with a scoop, you'll actually be using less mass of dark roast coffee compared to the same volume of light roast coffee. So your brew strength could be different if you don't weigh your beans.
Ah, interesting point. So weighing your beans becomes even more important for consistency across different roasts.
It definitely helps, yeah. Removes that variable.
So let's tie the weight loss directly to flavor again. It's not just water leaving.
No, the water leaving is what allows the flavor-developing reactions to happen at those higher temperatures. Think of it like this. Roasting is a controlled chemical transformation. Heat drives off water, and that process unlocks or creates hundreds of different aromatic and flavor compounds.
So less weight,
Right.
but more complex flavor in a way, at least different flavors.
Exactly. Light roasts preserve more original compounds. Medium roasts develop a balance, creating new compounds via Maillard and some caramelization. Dark roasts, well, they break down a lot of the original stuff and create new potent compounds dominated by the roasting process itself.
It's like a spectrum. And the weight loss tracks pretty closely with where you are on that spectrum.
It's a very good indicator, yes. A tangible measure of how much transformation the bean has undergone.
Okay, so let's try and sum this up then. Roasting coffee is this amazing process. Beans lose weight, mainly water.
Right.
And how much weight they lose is directly linked to how dark the roast is, and therefore what kind of flavors and aromas develop.
Correct. Darker roast equals more weight loss, equals bolder, more roast-driven flavors. Lighter roast equals less weight loss, equals brighter, more origin-focused flavors.
It's a fundamental change, transforming that green seed into the aromatic treasure we brew.
That's a nice way to put it. The weight change reflects the science and, you could say, the art of roasting.
So maybe next time you scoop your beans, just pause for a second. Think about that journey from dense green seed to this lighter, flavor-packed roasted bean.
Consider how much science is packed into that little bean and the process it went through.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other everyday things, simple rituals, have these kinds of surprising transformations hidden inside them?
It's a great thought to leave people with, applying that curiosity to other areas, maybe how bread rises or why tea leaves unfurl differently. There's often more going on than meets the eye.